Hi, everyone. Welcome to the show. Remember the deadly shooting at a Florida movie theater 8 years ago, where a guy was texting and the guy behind him ended up shooting and killing him after some thrown popcorn and an argument? The case is finally going to trial, and the defendant is claiming self-defense. That's coming up. But first, if I told you there was a cable news network accusing police of overly aggressive tactics, a network which has devoted significant time to attacking law enforcement officers, you'd probably think I'm talking about MSNBC or CNN, right? Nope. The network I'm talking about is Fox News. Turn on Fox News these days, and you're likely to see the Capitol Police or the FBI being thoroughly excoriated by the network's hosts and contributors. Yesterday, a claim from a Republican congressman that the Capitol Police spied on him, a claim that was made without any evidence, it gave Fox News personalities a golden opportunity to bash the people who put their lives on the line every day to protect our country's lawmakers.
Tonight, we're seeing a major series of reports of something pretty scary. Allegations that Capitol Hill police officers have been caught illegally spying on members of Congress.
And so what is the Capitol Police hiding while at the same time they're snooping around Capitol Hill trying to collect what they think is going to be damaging information against Republicans?
The Capitol Hill Police exist for a single reason: to protect the Capitol, which is the home of our legislature, which is the heart of our democracy, our elected members of Congress. But since January 6th, the Capitol Hill police force has been subverted by Nancy Pelosi, who oversees it, and Joe Biden, the new president, to become a kind of secret police force that acts on behalf of the Democratic Party. Think we're overstating that? We're not.
Suddenly, Fox is the ACLU. All of that police hate was just one day on Fox News. Now, they can try to link it to Nancy Pelosi all they want. But what they're really doing is accusing all of the men and women who serve and protect of being part of a, quote, secret police force that is engaging in un-American and almost certainly illegal conduct. So they're basically accusing the cops of being dirty, corrupt. Please, beat up Nancy Pelosi all you want. But that's a disgusting smear of brave people who put their lives on the line every day. On this show, I showcase the hard work men and women in law enforcement do every day. Period. And Fox's disdain for law enforcement has gone far beyond yesterday.
And a lot of these people are corrupt in this department. They hide stuff and they protect each other.
These cops using massive amounts of force against unarmed Trump supporters, including women.
No one's going to be indicted when law enforcement agencies destroy American citizens on the basis of no evidence.
Cops beating up unarmed women. Just who exactly do they think is joining the Capitol Police Force or the FBI or any of these other law enforcement agencies that they're constantly degrading these days? Flag-burning liberals who decided to pursue careers in law enforcement? Terry Gaynor, who served for 5 years as head of the Capitol Police and then as the Senate Sergeant-at-Arms, told Time magazine most Capitol Police officers personally favored Donald Trump. That shouldn't be the point, though. But back in 2016, one FBI agent told The Guardian the Bureau was Trumpland and said that most agents believe Hillary Clinton is the Antichrist. In fact, 67% of FBI agents are white males. Many of them have military backgrounds. It's exactly the demographic you would expect to support Donald Trump. In general, law enforcement officers, including federal officers, are overwhelmingly conservative. But that shouldn't be the point. I get that the FBI investigation into President Trump was incredibly controversial among conservatives, understood, as are many law enforcement investigations that liberals despise. But the wholesale attacks are an attack on every individual who chose a career in law enforcement at that entity. But it seems if they can score some cheap political points, some on Fox News will go from back the blue to bash the blue. And here's the reason that few can credibly call them out on it, is because the people who would typically do it would be liberals who often don't support police. So it can only be discussed credibly on something like this show, which is politically somewhere in the middle, which celebrates and thanks our law enforcement officers. You know, I'll say what I say every time someone, usually on the left, goes after the police as a whole. Yes, there are some bad officers, and they need to be held accountable. But please do not impugn an entire community. And today I say that to the Fox News hosts and guests who are going after the nation's cops now. Joining us now is Jeff Cabaservice. He's the Vice President of Political Studies at the Niskanen Center. He's extensively studied this issue. And Aidan McLaughlin, the editor-in-chief of Mediaite.com, which I founded. Jeff and Aidan, thank you so much for coming on the show. Appreciate it. All right, Jeff, let me ask you, how did something like this happen on Fox News where it became okay to beat up on law enforcement?
That seems strange, because one of the things that really identified conservatives in years past was that they did support law enforcement. They did support the FBI. But as the Republican Party has turned in an increasingly anti-government direction, and it's been given added spin by the populist turn of Donald Trump and Fox News, they've become deeply suspicious of anyone who draws a government salary in any capacity. I think there's legitimate worries on both the left and the right that an agency like the FBI can be turned to malign ends in terms of spying on its citizens and acting as a secret police force. But these ridiculous, baseless accusations against the FBI and the Capitol Police really stem from Trump's populism and the tribalization of our politics. In Trump world, you're either on our side or you're on the enemy's side, and it's as simple as that.
And Aidan, I see it sort of on Fox News as they kind of dip their toe at first, right? They'll start with a small little questioning of, et cetera. And when it seems to be okay to then to beat up on the FBI, and then it became okay to now beat up on the Capitol Police. I mean, I was just stunned at how overt the attacks have become. Just the Capitol Police are now the enemy. They may be police, but they're the Capitol Police, so they're the enemy.
Right. And I think what you're seeing recently is Fox News really ramping up attacks on police officers themselves in the wake, especially of the January 6th attack on the Capitol. But you can really trace this rhetoric back to the first few years of the Trump presidency, when Fox News hosts went all in on the conspiracy theory that there was this deep state operating at all levels of the American government to thwart Trump, mostly through the Mueller investigation. If you recall, Dan, there was, when Fox Business host Lou Dobbs was on the air, almost on a nightly basis, he would declare war against the deep state in the FBI and the Justice Departments. And Sean Hannity had a similar rhetoric. And I think at the time it could be explained by the simple fact that there was a Republican president in power, and Fox News, just for programming, needed an enemy to keep viewers engaged because of the Mueller investigation and because of the criticism that Trump was receiving from internally within U.S. government agencies. The FBI, the Justice Department, and the police were deemed to be a suitable enemy. So I think many questions have been raised about Fox News programming in the last years, the answer really comes down to Trump.
You know, Jeff, I care about the individual police officers, the agents themselves. I don't really care about the management. You can criticize, Chris Wray, a lifelong Republican who runs the FBI, if you want. You can say he makes bad decisions, et cetera. I'm concerned about the individual people who've decided to go into a career in law enforcement. I've got to believe that this is dispiriting for agents, for police officers, et cetera, the same way it is dispiriting for police officers in departments that are under fire from the left.
Absolutely. Increasingly, people who work in these agencies feel like they have no friends on either side of the political aisle. But I do think this, again, comes from Trump's belief that the whole establishment is arrayed against him. Not just the government, not just the deep state, but also the media, academia, and really experts of any kind. Trump comes out of a much older tradition of American political life, which does not believe in merit in the civil service. He believes in the spoil system and tribal politics, where the only thing that matters to him is loyalty to him, Trump, the individual. And that trumps everything else, so to speak. And that's not why people got into organizations like the Capitol Hill Police and the FBI. They got in to serve the country and to put the common good above partisan interests. And that's really what the Fox narrative is seeking to overthrow, I think.
And Aidan, there really can't be any pushback, really, because the kinds of people, when you see MSNBC celebrating the Capitol Police, right, and then bashing the police the next day, there's really no credibility there. And that's the problem. That's why no one can hold Fox accountable for this, because the people who typically would do that really don't have credibility on the topic.
Right. And I think also what's so fascinating about the Fox angle of it is that typically Fox would be a network that would do that would say to MSNBC and CNN, well, you can't attack law enforcement for this reason. But that's what's so fascinating about the Trump era is that it flipped all of these orthodoxies that we typically understood about media and politics on their head. I mean, I don't think any other president could have forced Fox News hosts to turn on the American police and turn MSNBC into this, champion of the Capitol Police, where they have, Capitol Police officers on air throughout the day, extolling their bravery. So he's really reversed the roles that these media outlets typically played. And at Fox News, it's just that Trump started going on the attack against the police, and the Fox News hosts followed. And it's purely because that's what the audience wanted. Trump can't be crossed. So if the police are the enemy, then they become the enemy of his base as well. And similarly on MSNBC, not to criticize him too much on this, but because Trump was going after the police, they became the champions of the police. So there was this incredible reversal that happened over the course of the Trump presidency, and that is what we're seeing as a result.
Well, let me promise all of the viewers this from my perspective, which is you're going to see me celebrating law enforcement, as I do every day on this show. I will also hold them accountable. I will hold an individual police officer accountable for wrongdoing. I'll hold a Capitol police officer accountable for wrongdoing. I'll hold an FBI agent accountable for wrongdoing. But what I'm not going to do is these broad smears that you see on the left of police and now apparently on the right as well, which I think is really shameful. Aidan McLaughlin and Jeff Cabaservice, thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate it. Coming up, Sarah Palin takes the stand in her defamation case against the New York Times. How much of her testimony will be about the bias of the Times? We take you inside the courtroom. That's next. In a Manhattan courtroom today, Sarah Palin took the stand in her defamation suit against the New York Times. She talked about her time as a public servant and her time campaigning for the vice presidency in 2008. Now remember, the dispute between Palin and the Times stems from a 2017 op-ed in which the Times falsely claimed there was a tie between ads run by Palin's super PAC and the 2011 shooting in Arizona, which killed 6 people and severely injured Congresswoman Gabby Giffords. The op-ed said in part, in 2011, when Jared Lee Loughner opened fire in a supermarket parking lot, grievously wounding Representative Gabby Giffords and killing 6 people, including a 9-year-old girl, the link to political incitement was clear. Before that shooting, Sarah Palin's Political Action Committee circulated a map of targeted electoral districts that put Ms. Giffords and 19 other Democrats under stylized crosshairs. Now, there was never evidence to support that link. Yesterday, the former head of the New York Times editorial section, James Bennett, took the stand and basically took the blame, saying, "This is my fault. I wrote those sentences. I'm not looking to shift the blame to anyone else. I just want that for the record." Bennett again was on the stand today and went into detail about how the 2017 congressional baseball shooting was an opportunity for the editorial board to warn liberals about the dangers of extremist political rhetoric, saying there's a fair amount of hypocrisy in our political culture. Bennett explained, it's easier to see when the other side is doing something you don't like than to see when you're making the same mistake. Now, he's doing his best to position himself as not being driven by political animus towards Palin. And he stood by the piece in large part, saying, I feel that the overall argument of the piece was still valid. As important as this correction was, I don't think, as I say, it invalidated the overall argument. For Palin to win, she'll have to show the Times put the false incitement language in there intentionally, or at least that they had serious doubts about its accuracy, which is why Palin's team is focusing on the Times' liberal bend politically. As I've said before, she does have a legitimate gripe here, and it's possible the Times could lose. But this is one of the most important media trials in many, many years. Joining me is someone who's covering the case extensively, Eric Wemple, back, media columnist for The Washington Post. Eric, thanks for coming back on the show. Appreciate it. All right, so I want to ask you on this sort of political argument. Is Palin going to go after the Times, do you think, on the stand, with this sort of talking about other political attacks she believes that they've made against her in other contexts?
Yeah, I think, obviously Sarah Palin has a pretty well loaded and scripted attack on the media. This merges right with it. The difference is this time, I think, as you referenced, Dan, there is a fair amount of merit to this particular one. I think that she's shot blanks for many years on a lot of these attacks just because the media, I believe, in many cases was telling the truth about her. In this case, and I've said this from the very beginning, this is a serious suit, and what the Times wrote about her was a gobsmacking falsehood, And people in my sort of community have always said, oh, there's a weak case, and they sort of criticized me when I called it convincing in 2017. But all those people, I'm going to bet, never got accused of inciting a mass murder.
Yeah. And how important do you think that are James Bennett's personal politics in the connection? I mean, it seems to me it's almost everything, right? Because they have to show that this was intentional on his part.
Yeah, and that's a real tough thing. And it's a tough thing for a reason. And Dan, you know this very well. You've been, you're a media law family. Trying to prove state of mind among journalists when they make a mistake, and try to prove that they did it with actual malice, as you said, knowing falsity or reckless disregard, which means entertaining serious doubts about the material. That's a really hard thing to do. And if nothing else, this trial is teaching the country, or at least those who are paying attention, just how hard it is to surmount this standard. And what a tremendous, tremendous set of privileges and protections we have in doing the job that we do in bringing the news to the public.
And this has been, though, an ugly case for the New York Times in terms of digging into their editorial process. And when you look at how they dealt with this, and you've been very critical, looking at what happened here and how it happened.
Dan, I don't even understand how he got the notion to put this material in the text of the editorial at all. I mean, perhaps he was just remembering back to a lefty conspiracy talking point, a debunked talking point that Sarah Palin's PAC incited Jared Lee Loughner to kill a bunch of people in a Tucson, Arizona parking lot. I don't really know where he got the idea. It's clear that he did virtually no research before putting this stuff in the editorial. Like, he did almost nothing, and that's been well documented. And it is remarkable, and it is something about our system, it's something about our First Amendment, that negligence, even negligence as sort of like, as I say, gobsmacking as this, is protected. And I think that makes for a stronger, society and a stronger political system, because it's ingrained in our system that you can attack public officials and public figures.
Well, it's ingrained in our law, at least for now. But if Sarah Palin loses, this could be the case that ends up working its way up in the courts that could challenge some of those fundamental guarantees as of today. Eric Wemple, thank you so much for coming on the show. Appreciate it.
I appreciate you having me.
Coming up, Senator Ron Johnson sets a trap for a Biden administration nominee who forgot all about an old tweet she'd written about him. The gotcha moment is next. Now time for our Mediaite Moments, where we check in on the day's bias, buzz, and bull in the world of cable news and beyond. Typically, questions and answers at Senate committee hearings are pretty predictable. Someone's going to ask aggressive or really tough questions. The witness is usually ready for it. But not so at yesterday's Senate Foreign Relations Committee hearing. Senator Ron Johnson was interviewing Deborah Lipstadt, who had been nominated as special envoy to combat anti-Semitism. Things seemed to start off reasonably well.
Question: if somebody came up to you privately, quietly, and said, you're a racist, you're a white supremacist, you're a white nationalist. By the way, I do not believe you are. Always assume the best about people. Now, how would you feel if somebody just privately called you a racist?
A reasonable question, especially for an official who would focus on hate.
First of all, I would say they're wrong. Second of all, I would disagree with them. I'm very careful never to ascribe to the person.
So it sounds like a perfectly good answer, except what Lipstadt didn't realize is that Senator Johnson had just set a trap, and she just walked right into it.
But that's not true. What you just testified there is false. Because not only did you go on, first of all, you don't know me. You've accused people you don't know of very vile things. I mean,
what Lipstadt was apparently unaware of or had forgotten was that she had tweeted the following comment about Senator Ron Johnson. She shared an article condemning Johnson's past remarks, adding, quote, "This is white supremacy, nationalism, pure and simple." You know who didn't forget about that tweet?
We all know the tweet. It's right here.
Right.
Okay?
You know.
You said it's pure and simple. Pure and simple. White supremacy, nationalism. Do you feel bad about that at all? I mean, do you retract that?
I thought we were going to have more of the apology there, but she's sort of trying to figure out what to say. Ouch, well.
As I said earlier, it was not nuanced. I certainly did not mean it, and I'm sorry if it was taken, and I'm sorry if I made it in a way that it could be assumed to be a political at the person personally.
Thank you, sir. May I have another? Remember, she is there in the hope of being confirmed by the Senate.
Appreciate the apology, but I think somebody that has had a 30-year professional career ought to know better. And when you're being nominated and considered for confirmation to a position of diplomacy representing the United States, you're just simply not qualified for it. But I wish you the best in life, and I do accept your apology.
I'm sure she was really there to clear the air with Senator Johnson. But despite his opposition, she is expected to be confirmed on a generally bipartisan basis, but he certainly got the best of that one. That's our wrap-up of the day's media bias buzz on the Bull. Coming up, 8 years after a fight over texting during a movie matinee ended with a man dead and his wife wounded after some thrown popcorn, the trial is finally starting. We'll take you inside the courtroom up next. Eight years after a dispute over texting inside a Florida movie theater turned fatal, the high-profile trial has finally started. Jury selection underway in the trial of Curtis Reeves, a former Tampa police captain who in 2014 fatally shot a man and injured the man's wife. You may remember this story. It was headlines everywhere. Reeves, now 79 years old, faces charges of second-degree murder and aggravated battery for the fatal shooting of Chad Olson and also for the shooting of Olson's wife, Nicole. He's claiming self-defense over an incident that involved popcorn being thrown at him. The jury will have security footage of the shooting to help them decide Reeves' fate. Here it is. You can see the popcorn being thrown in the air. Reeves reaches into his pocket, pulls out a .380 caliber handgun and shoots 43-year-old Olson in the chest. On its way, the bullet actually hits Nicole Olson's hand as she attempted to hold her husband back. And to understand the defense, it's critical to understand the timeline leading up to it. January 13th, 2014, Grove Theater, about 20 minutes outside of Tampa. They apparently begin fighting over Olson texting during previews for a Monday matinee showing of the Mark Wahlberg film Lone Survivor. Reeves and his wife sitting just behind the Olsons. Now, Reeves told the court in a 2017 pretrial hearing that he asked Olson to stop texting.
My voice was low, and I said, "Sir, can I get you to put your cell phone away?"
And was there a response to that?
The response was, F off or get the F out of my face.
Reeves then complains about the texting to a manager at the theater before returning to his seat. That's when the final altercation and the shooting went down. He claims it was self-defense.
Why did you shoot him?
Well, at that point, it was his life or mine.
Did you feel he was going to hurt you?
No question about it.
So why did it take 8 years for the trial to begin? Prosecution believes the defense has been intentionally delaying everything. First, Reeves requested immunity, meaning to avoid a trial at all, under Florida's Stand Your Ground law. That effort was rejected. He appealed all the way to the state Supreme Court. He can, however, still claim self-defense at the trial. Then the pandemic created delays, but Reeves was behind bars for 6 months following the shooting and has been on house arrest since. Joining us now, investigative reporter who has covered this case extensively, Walt Buteau, who is with Next Star station WFLA in Tampa, Florida. Walt, thanks for coming back on the show. Appreciate it. Just flesh out for us a little bit the claim of self-defense.
So at this point, he is claiming, I think, that he feared for his life. And we've talked to legal experts about that. And, he has to have this reasonable fear that his life was in danger. The lower court, the courts did not believe that for the stand your ground defense, but, that's over. He can still claim self-defense. And the same legal experts say he needs a small amount of evidence in order to get the jury to get instructions that self-defense was possible here. A small amount of evidence, even if there is a weak case, and some might argue this could be thought of as a weak case, right? Popcorn versus a gun.
But you're talking about to get a jury instruction about it. That doesn't mean he's necessarily going to be found not guilty. I think it's an important distinction. Let me play a piece of sound here of Reeves's wife. This is her testimony. Remember, she was shot in the hand here. This is in that same hearing from 2017, talking about what happened.
Mr. Olson quickly stood up and turned, and he leaned forward, and I thought he was coming over.
How is he coming over?
He's going like for Curtis.
So he's at an angle going towards...
I think so.
Yeah, that's a problem for him, is that you have, another eyewitness who was right there as it was happening.
Well, Nicole Olson is also an eyewitness and testified or has stated that Mr. Reeves' demeanor is not how Mr. Reeves describes it, which was, as he said, in a low voice, calmly instructed him, "Can you please stop texting?" She described him as angry and frightening, and that her husband had a reason to be afraid of Mr. Reeves. And both sides have sort of pointed to Mr. Reeves' experience as a police officer, with the Olson's attorney saying he should have known how to de-escalate this. The other side, Mr. Reeves' defense is saying his experience would have told him he had reason to fear for his life. A younger man, he's said to be frail at this point, 71 years old at the time of the shooting. So we expect to hear that testimony as well. And again, we expect to hear from Vivian Reeves as well.
Right. Good point that you've got both wives who are going to be testifying with different accounts. Let me play one more piece of sound. This is from Reeves, again, testifying himself at hearing in 2017.
Mrs. Olson was trying to hold him back, and he was pulling away from her. He looked at me like he was out of control. He was in a fit of rage. He was trying to get over the seat at me.
But there is that surveillance footage, right? And that is going to be critical as well.
Absolutely. And it does, you wonder if they can enhance it so we can see more of what Mr. Olson did, because at this point we don't really see what Mr. Olson's doing. We do have the testimony, but it's conflicting testimony. You see him stand up there, frightening video. And there's another point here that could come up. There were reports early on that did Mr. Reeves leave and get a weapon, or did he have the weapon while he was in the theater? And that could be an important point in the case, depending on how that shakes out.
Yeah, that surveillance footage makes this a tough defense, but we shall see. Walt Buteau, thanks as always. Appreciate it.
No problem. Good to be here, Dan.
Coming up, the heat ratcheted up on Congressman Matt Gaetz with another guilty plea that could bring the feds closer to a possible indictment in that sex trafficking scandal. This is he was on the House floor talking about workplace sexual harassment. Yes, really. That's next. Plus, a shootout caught on body cam. We're on scene as a man wanted for attempted murder opens fire on an officer. What the suspect told 911 dispatchers to try to surprise and ambush police. Of all the members of Congress to make a floor speech about concerns over federal policy on workplace sexual harassment, you might not expect it to come from the one member currently caught up in a sex trafficking investigation, and right at a time when the investigation is heating up. On Monday, embattled Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz took to the House floor to support a bill that would bar companies from forcing employees to arbitrate claims of sexual assault and harassment in the workplace.
We have all heard about the fine print in this country. No one reads the fine print. But the fine print shouldn't be a reason that someone is more likely to have to endure sexual harassment in the workplace or more likely to evade consequence as the result of predatory behavior.
If it were almost any other member of Congress making that speech, would seem fairly innocuous, but this is Matt Gaetz talking about it. Now, to be fair, Gaetz has supported similar legislation over the last few years, but Gaetz is reportedly being investigated by a federal grand jury on charges of sex trafficking a minor, violating the Mann Act and obstruction of justice. And today we learned that Joe Ellicott, he's a close friend and former government employee of Joel Greenberg, who's the key figure in the investigation, just pled guilty to conspiracy, wire fraud, and drug charges that happened earlier today. Ellicott also agreed to continue to cooperate with the sprawling, ongoing federal investigation that includes Congressman Gaetz. Now, he has vehemently denied all allegations against him, says he's never paid for sex and never had sex with a minor as an adult. The Gaetz investigation centers around whether he gave a 17-year-old money or goods in exchange for sex. But investigators are also looking into whether Gaetz potentially obstructed justice during a phone call with his ex-girlfriend and another woman. The DOJ is not even officially acknowledging that Congressman's under investigation. But last month, Gaetz' ex-girlfriend, believed to be a former congressional staffer herself, reportedly testified before the grand jury. The woman's considered critical because she may have information related to both the sex trafficking and obstruction investigations. Now, legally, paying for sex with a minor automatically triggers sex trafficking charge, regardless of whether the adult thought the person was of legal consenting age or showed a fake ID. Now, Joel Greenberg, the guy I mentioned before, former Seminole County tax collector, he pled guilty last year to multiple charges, including sex trafficking a minor, the same teen at issue in the Gaetz investigation. He's repeatedly had his sentencing hearing rescheduled. This is important because that suggests that he could have information of significant interest for prosecutors. According to court records, last year, Greenberg also admitted defrauding the Seminole County tax office out of hundreds of thousands of dollars, using county money to buy cryptocurrency and sports memorabilia, and, of course, using the office credit card to pay women he met on a sugar daddy website. The investigation into Gaetz was spurred by the charges initially filed against that guy Greenberg in July of 2020. Now, prosecutors would be very careful, deliberative, before filing any charges against a high-profile political figure like Gaetz, who's already claimed that the investigation is political, even though it was launched during the Trump administration. Joining me now is Dave Ehrenberg, state attorney for Palm Beach County, Florida. Dave, appreciate you coming back on the show. Appreciate it. All right, so how significant is this latest guilty plea and also the delay of Joel Greenberg's sentencing?
Yeah, good evening, Dan. It's not a huge deal that Big Joe Ellicott pled guilty. He wasn't close to Matt Gaetz, but he was in his outer periphery. Where he can be helpful to prosecutors is that Big Joe was in the room when it happened, meaning that he was in the room when Joel Greenberg found out that one of the girls they met on the Seeking Arrangements website was underage. And then he called Matt Gaetz, and he called him in a panic. And later, Joel Greenberg said that Matt Gaetz was just as upset as he was. Well, if that goes to trial and that evidence comes out, Gaetz will, of course, say, no, that's not true. Joel Greenberg is a professional liar, which he is. But to corroborate that account, they can bring up Big Joe, who was in that room and overheard the call. But they can only use it as corroborating evidence, not as direct evidence, because otherwise it would be hearsay. And I think the bigger deal, Dan, is the testimony of the ex-girlfriend before the grand jury.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Yeah,
more important.
Tell us about that. Why so significant? Yeah.
You know, the feds are not going to rely on Joel Greenberg or even the alleged underage girl victim in this case because they have credibility issues. But the ex-girlfriend, as you correctly stated, was a Capitol Hill staffer. She had an open relationship with Matt Gaetz. So she ended things with him pretty positively, like they remained friends. And she was around when Matt Gaetz allegedly was involved with a 17-year-old girl. So that's a witness for the child sex trafficking allegation. Number two, she was on the Bahamas trip in 2018, which could lead to charges of violations of the Mann Act, which says you can't transport individuals across state or federal lines for purposes of prostitution. And number three, as you correctly said, she was on a phone call with Matt Gaetz and another girl who was cooperating with the FBI, where Matt Gaetz reportedly may have engaged in witness tampering. So that's why she's really important. And that's why she was given immunity to testify truthfully.
And is it fair to say that legally, when we talk about trafficking, sex trafficking, in the federal system, what you're really talking about is what would classically be viewed as statutory rape in a state charge?
There would still need to be an exchange of something of monetary value. That's the difference.
Right.
And if there's that exchange. And it doesn't matter really that the victim here said she was 19. According to reports, she put a profile on Seeking Arrangement saying she was 19. As long as Matt Gaetz had a reasonable opportunity to observe her, then he could be found guilty. But that's the small little exception. If you don't have a reasonable opportunity to observe someone, and what is that? Well, it's what the courts say it is. It doesn't take a long time. If you've been around her for an hour, that should be enough of an opportunity to observe her.
All right. Now, you are a prosecutor. Talk to me about the decision-making here from the prosecutors about whether to charge someone. You know, I've always said that when it comes to, and I'm not saying in the context of this case, but in other cases, I've said that when you're talking about indicting someone who's really powerful, you better make sure it's not on a technicality. You better make sure that you've got all your I's and your T's dotted, because the political fallout in and of itself should be something that I think prosecutors should consider, and I know that they do consider.
Yeah, and you have Merrick Garland at the top of the DOJ, and he's got a reputation for, dotting every I and crossing every T. I mean, ask Mark Meadows, who's still waiting 8 weeks for a decision on his contempt of Congress charges. So when it comes to a sitting member of Congress, something as severe as child sex trafficking, you want to make sure you have it right. You want to make sure you have corroborating witnesses like the ex-girlfriend. That's why this all has taken so long. And also, you can tell that this stuff's getting real by the fact that DOJ has essentially taken the matter out of the hands of the Middle District of Orlando, which is prosecuting Joel Greenberg, and put in the hands of some of the top officials at Main Justice in Washington, D.C., including someone from the Public Corruption Unit. That's why Matt Gaetz is probably having some sleepless nights right now.
Do you expect that he will likely get charged?
I do, and I think the reason why I do is because of the ex-girlfriend's testimony. And a lot of people thought that the delay in this investigation meant that there was light at the end of the tunnel for Matt Gaetz, but that light was just an oncoming train.
Yeah. Dave Arenberg, thank you. Appreciate it. We will be keeping an eye on this case. But this is, again, one of these cases that has been going on so long. It's now been an investigation for almost a year now, and everyone has been saying, oh, I think it's coming. I think it's coming. And then, nothing happened. So maybe nothing will happen, too. So we shall see.
Hey, Dan,
but
that's how the feds work, right? We state prosecutors. Yeah. We churn through it very quickly, not them.
Yeah, that's true. Dave, thanks for coming back on the show. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Dan.
Coming up, a frightening police shootout caught on body cam. A man wanted for attempted murder opens fire on an officer. He actually lied to 911 to try to ambush police. It's coming up. We're on scene tonight with police in Gilroy, California, showing the dangers that officers face across the country. It starts with a 911 call from a man wanted for attempted murder.
They told me to contact you guys, that you guys are looking for me or whatever from right here.
Who told you to contact us?
I don't know.
You don't know who told you to contact us? Are you drunk or high right now?
I'm drunk and high.
Are you armed at all?
Oh, no. You know I'm not. I wouldn't be calling you guys if I was.
Police went to the post office where the suspect, David Lopez, said he would turn himself in. But as an officer pulled up to the curb, Lopez showed his true intention. Lopez fired at the officer, hitting her patrol vehicle. She took cover and shot back at Lopez. The gun Lopez was using malfunctioned, so he pulled out a second handgun and kept firing as a sergeant arrived.
In front of the post office, he's hunkered down.
Let me get around you.
As Lopez pointed his gun at the sergeant, the officer already at the scene fired 2 shots, hitting Lopez once and killing him. Both of his guns were recovered at the scene. No officers were injured. The incident remains under investigation. Joining me is retired NYPD officer Jillian Snyder, an adjunct professor at John Jay College of Criminal Justice in New York. Thanks for coming back on the show. Appreciate it. All right, so take me through this from an officer's perspective, particularly from the perspective of the sergeant, who's the second one to arrive after shots have already been fired at that first officer.
Well, I want to say thank you for having me on again. And I want to just point out that the dispatcher in this case did an amazing job getting as much information as he could to relay to the officers. So they did.
Yeah, you know what? That's a great point. You know what? We don't give enough of a shout out to the dispatchers a lot of the time for the great work they do. Thank you for pointing that out. I'm sorry I interrupted you.
Oh, no, I just want to say they're officers' lifeline a lot of the times, and they don't, as you said, they don't get as much credit as they need. But in this case, the officer knew that they were going to see a suspect who had called himself in, knowing that the police were looking to talk to him. So he probably knew that he was wanted. And upon approach, the officer did give, and you could hear it in the body cam footage, she did give explicit instruction for him to lay down in the prone position. He immediately fired upon her vehicle. That officer was so quick. She remained so composed. She jumped out of her car. She took concealment, which is when we use our car and our door to kind of slice the pie in order to be able to return fire at our target. And then she went to the back of the vehicle and she was able to get cover. So in her mind, as she's seeing the sergeant approach, that sergeant, all he's probably hearing is gunshots. He's not knowing what's going on. And she immediately, that officer, again, very composed, very articulate, said to dispatch, shots fired, I'm returning fire. I mean, she kept her cool and she did an amazing job.
Let me play that again as the suspect shoots at her, because I think I missed a little bit of what you pointed out there. Let's listen to that again.
Fire, shots fired.
Now, again, the critical point here is the sergeant keeping her distance, right? I mean, if she gets too close too early, she's putting herself in much graver danger real quick.
You never want to run up on someone who's actively shooting on you. Your immediate reaction is to retreat, take some cover. You need time, cover, and concealment in a shooting situation. So this officer did everything by the book, well-trained tactically, was able to walk away unscathed, thank God. And, you know, at the end of the day, she should just be thankful for her tactics.
Jillian Snyder, thank you so much for coming on the show. That does it for us tonight. NewsNation Prime with Marnie Hughes starts now. Thank you for watching. Click the red subscribe button below so you can get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.